Welcome, everyone, to the Over Under Movies podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you today. We've got a bonus episode. We are doing a review of Dune Part 2, which is now out in theaters. Jason, we've been waiting for like 2 weeks to watch this goddamn movie. There's been press screenings, there's been fan screenings. We haven't been able to get in to watch it, so we finally watched it. We literally just got out of the theater. This is like our fresh, raw, instant reaction to the film. Jason, my podcast host here as always. You want to introduce our guests?
Sure. Today with us, we have Fran and Max, two of my good friends. Why don't you guys tell us about yourselves?
Hey, everyone. I'm Max, Jason's previous roommate. We watched a ton of movies. We have made a movie wheel where we've made each other watch a lot of questionable movies. Mm-hmm. And yeah, excited to talk about Dune.
And I'm Fran, Jason's ex-roommate's girlfriend. And I also like movies, particularly fantasy movies. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, so perfect for this conversation. It's great. I love it when we're able to peer pressure people into coming on the podcast. Makes for a much more exciting discussion. So, Jason, we just got out of the theater. Literally, me and you have not said a word to each other about this movie.
Yeah, and we sat next to each other, too. Yeah.
We did. We did not talk, though, because don't talk during movies. We'll start non-spoilers. Jason, overall thoughts? Dune Part 2, what did you think of it?
I thought it was great. I thought it was action-packed. I thought it was exciting, colorful, beautiful. We were in a Dolby theater, so all the contrast was vivid and cool looking, and the seats rumbled. This is the most the seats have ever rumbled for me in a movie theater experience. It was like a massage chair. I highly recommend going to a theater where the seats are going to rumble for you.
Yeah, this is definitely the type of movie where you want to see it in the biggest, most vibrant environment possible. I know we were talking about going up to the big IMAX screen in King of Prussia near us, because like that's probably like the best screen to see, and I think they're showing it at 70 millimeter there. Definitely gonna be a movie that I see more than once in theaters. It's a hell of an experience. This movie is very much like, it's like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings put together almost. The movie is insanely long. We talk about it all the time, Jason. I'm not a fan of long movies. I definitely felt the length of this movie. I checked my watch like twice because there's just so much that happens in this movie. This movie covers like the back half of the book. We'll talk about book differences when we get into spoilers. But yeah, what an exciting like film to witness on screen. We talked about this in our David Lynch Dune episode, where this was a book that was considered like unfilmable for a long time. Nobody wanted to touch this thing. I mean, it literally had not been touched since 1984. Nobody wanted to give this an attempt. And Denis Villeneuve, just the absolute masterclass on display here in this film. You really sit there like speechless in a lot of those scenes. It's unreal. Hell of a movie. I'm so excited to like be alive when this movie came out, because it was a real experience in the theaters. I don't know. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I loved it. I was telling Jason right when we got out that you mentioned Lord of the Rings, and I feel like Lord of the Rings in my mind is like one of the greatest trilogies, like movie trilogies of all time. And I feel like halfway through this movie, I was getting excited because I was thinking that it could get really close, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of, it was really high energy. And also I thought visually it was so beautiful. The color contrast, like obviously of the screen, but just in general, like aesthetically, like the design was so good. I also felt like it had really good pacing. I feel like there were very few moments where I was like, okay, let's move on. I feel like it was pretty well edited in that respect.
In contrast to the first movie.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times in the first movie, those... Yeah.
We saw that together.
Saw it together, and I was saying I fell asleep twice during the first movie.
No!
And I didn't miss anything from it. So, this movie definitely was long, but I feel like it was really well paced. There was so much going on.
So did you think this was a lot better than the first movie?
Yeah. I think I do actually. I mean, I liked the first movie, but I think there was just a lot going on in this one, and I like that.
Yeah, we're also kind of like diving into like, I think the exciting part of the story. Like, not that the first movie wasn't exciting, but I feel like it was a lot of like expositional stuff. Like, I feel like the real story is like him as the Messiah, you know? So
yeah,
we finally got to dive into that.
Yeah, which is interesting because this movie covers essentially the back half of the book, or even like the back like 2/3 of the book. A lot of stuff happens after the siege on Arrakeen when Duke Leto was killed from the in the first movie. It's interesting you talk about the colors, because so much of this movie takes place in the desert. So you would think that there wouldn't be a lot to do with the colors, but we don't have notes for this podcast. We're doing this off the riff, but the cinematographer in this film is fucking incredible. Like, that guy's got to win best cinematography next year for this movie. It's unreal what he's able to do with the desert and making it look different all throughout the film. And that anytime they go off planet and they show, like, there's a sequence in Gidi Prime, the Harkonnen planet, which is shot entirely in black and white. It's this like a gladiator fight sequence. It's incredible. Like, they're just like flexing their muscles, like how good they are at making movies with every scene.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at that poster that we have up, and it is interesting, like the amount of contrast they're able to get even out in the desert. And then, yeah, just like the little touches, like the way the spice sparkles and you can tell it's there. There's so much in there that brings that world to life, even though it's such a barren planet.
Yeah. Do you know who the cinematographer was?
Off the top of my head. I can look it up.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Right. Just because I know that, like, I'm a big fan of Denis Villeneuve. And so, like, Blade Runner 2024 feels like there's a lot of similarities of like how they take on like some of those landscapes, and some of those visual sort of things I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you guys feel about like the story? Because neither of you have read Dune. I haven't read Dune all the way through. Were you able to like keep up with what was going on? Did you recently like rewatch the first one to get a better grasp on it?
I did, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, no, I thought it was really easy to follow. I'm someone that can really easily get lost in the sauce. But I felt like it was pretty clear. I thought like it was a little on the nose for my liking. Like, are we allowed to do spoilers now?
We'll keep it non-spoiler for now. We're just going like general thoughts.
Then we'll come back to that. But I feel like some moments were like some reveals were like a little on the nose where it's like, this is this. And like they just say it. And it's like, okay, yeah, no. There's like no exciting discovery. It's just like they say it. I don't know. That was like a little anticlimactic for me. But yeah, I thought overall it was really good.
Yeah, I feel like some of the story points could have taken a little more time, which is like obviously running up against like its runtime already. But I'm glad that things moved relatively quickly, and they didn't spend like a ton of time on it dragging. But it was, I mean, yeah, maybe that also gets into spoilers, so we can get to that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like something they really rushed was the relationship between Paul and Chani. Mm-hmm. I feel like that was just bing, bing, boom. Mm-hmm. Like we didn't get to like explore that really at all. Which I think like your relationship between your characters is just as important as plot, in my opinion, because like obviously we want to be invested in the people to like care about what's happening. And I feel like it was just kind of like hard to do that.
Yeah, I feel like there was like Paul said one W Riz thing and then they kissed, and I can't even remember what it was. But it was like one thing, and then she was like, "Okay, I'm into you now."
Yeah. It's one of those things where they're trying to compress a lot of things that happen in the book into just this movie. So it's definitely tricky. I think the pacing in this film is about as good as you could have hoped for. Well, we talked about in the Lynch Dune, like the Jodorowsky, his like original script was like 10 to 14 hours or something to adapt this book. There's just like so much in the book. It's such a huge book. I mean, you've been listening to an audio book and you're like barely into it, right?
Yeah, I'm still like halfway through the first movie, I would say.
Yeah.
Wow.
The cinematographer is named Greg Fraser. He recently did The Creator last year, which I have not seen, but I heard it has good visuals. He did The Batman. He's the DP on The Batman. Nice. He's worked on the Mandalorian series. He did Vice.
Has he worked with
Rogue One
before?
He did Dune Part 1.
Oh, okay.
So this is the second time working with Denis.
Makes sense.
The other big star of this film, I think, is the actors. This is one of those situations where he just pulled in an all-star lineup, and it's amazing to see how much he's able to get out of certain actors despite not being in a lot of scenes. I mean, this is Oppenheimer all over again, where there are certain actors that are like stars in other movies, and they're in like one or two scenes. Léa Seydoux is not in this movie that much. Anya Taylor-Joy, who is, I guess, technically a spoiler, she's even in this movie, but she's in one scene, and she's like in and out. You know, Christopher Walken as the Emperor, he's not in that much of the movie. Florence Pugh is not in that much of the movie. So Denis Villeneuve, he's hitting on that Christopher Nolan level of being able to pull in actors of a seriously high caliber and be like, can you be in like 3 scenes of this movie and that's it? And they're like, sign me up, let's go.
It was impressive. I think everyone did a good job and was given like a chance to shine. Like Léa Seydoux, like you said, she didn't have a lot of screen time, but what she was able to do, I think, was really impressive. Like she kind of mirrors Jessica's role in the first one. She like seduces the villain and puts him through the trials. And then, yeah, even with Anya Taylor-Joy, her one scene was pretty memorable.
Yeah. I think Florence Pugh was maybe my favorite character. I don't know her character's name, but...
Princess
Irulan.
Okay. Yeah, I think she was maybe my favorite character. I thought she did a great job.
So the cool thing, you guys haven't read the book, right? So the cool thing about Irulan is that at the beginning of every chapter of the book, there's like a passage of like biographies basically about Muad'Dib, and they're all written by Princess Irulan. So it's just like passages from the books that she wrote about him, and they kind of adapted that a bit in this movie, where she's like narrating basically the stories that she's writing, which is a cool like little like page to screen adaptation, which I liked a lot.
Yeah, I would agree that she did a great job, and she was like probably the smartest character that was like on the bad guys side. So she got a lot to do, and she also parallels Paul in a lot of ways. She was like brought up by the Bene Gesserit, and she has like a lot of knowledge of Arrakis despite never being there. So even though she wasn't given a lot of screen time, she was still given a lot to do, and she pulled it off really well.
Yeah, I would say the other big star of this movie that was not in the first one is Austin Butler, who plays Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen. He's not introduced until about halfway through the movie, which I thought was a very interesting choice considering he's like the foil to Paul. He's almost like a failed experiment version of what Paul is supposed to be. So to have that contrast between the two characters, and then like the restraint in not introducing him like very early in the movie, they wait a while till we get to that gladiator sequence, which I liked a lot. I saw in one of the reviews for this movie, they said Austin Butler is a demon from hell in this movie. And he's great. Like he's pure evil, and I think it's a hell of a performance from him. I never saw the Elvis movie, so this is like the first time I really saw Austin Butler in something. I thought he was great.
You didn't see him when he was in his Disney Channel era in Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure, the Sharpay Orion spin-off movie from High School Musical. What? Sorry.
What'd you guys think of Austin Butler?
Fran?
Handsome Squidward. No, he was great. I feel like there's a lot of inconsistency in like his voice acting abilities, but I felt like physically he was exciting to me. I mean, like the makeup and the costumes are just like amazing. So good. So good.
Yeah, the voice he chose to do I thought was interesting because he's still recovering from playing Elvis. He had to hire a voice coach to unteach him what his Elvis voice coach taught him. Yeah. So he's stuck in that. And then what it seems like he's going for here is he's doing an impression of Yeah, go
That's
ahead.
exactly what I was about to say. It felt like he was doing an impression of Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah, exactly. He watched Dune Part 1 and he was like, that's what I'm supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
And then so it's that, and then you get a little bit of that Elvis twang.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Austin Butler's American, right? Technically.
I think so.
Yeah.
And Stellan Skarsgård's using his like normal like Swedish American voice. So like trying to like, I can only imagine like how complex that was to like, get that accent correct. I agree that it's a little all over the place at times, but the vibes are what you want to get out of that character, and he nailed the vibes.
Yeah.
I think the other big standout performance in this film is a character that was in the first film, though we didn't see much of her, is Zendaya is Chani, and Chani is kind of like Paul's North Star a little bit in this film. And in the book, it's very similar. They fall in love. In this movie, they do a really interesting twist on her that, I don't know, maybe we can talk about that in spoilers, but I thought her performance was really good to me. The only things I've really seen Zendaya in are like the Spider-Man movies. I'm not a big TV person, so I didn't watch Euphoria. But I thought she was really like flexing her acting muscles a lot in this movie in ways that I hadn't seen from her before. And I thought it was great. I thought her and Chalamet had really good chemistry.
Yeah, I think so too. She was cool because she was the love interest, but also like a mentor and protector of him. And it was interesting seeing her have conflict with like Paul's mom, because these are like the two women in his life that want really different things for him. And they both think that they're right in how they want to protect Paul. And yeah, I know that that character diverges quite a bit from the book. So it'll be interesting to see what she gets to do in the next movie.
Yeah, I think maybe the most interesting aspect of her character was the sort of being able to show like some of the Fremen believe in the prophecy, some of them don't, and giving her the ability to like just outright be like, no, like I think these people were lied to. I think they all believe in this lie that like this woman who's an outsider came and told everyone. I thought that like I feel like most of the time movies like this can kind of be a bit too coy. They can be like, oh, is it this or is it that? But to have one character be like, no, they told us this and you believe it, you're lied to.
Yeah,
like
she's
that.
our progressive queen.
Yeah.
I love her. I also love that she like very much stays true to herself. She's not like one of these women that like hooks up with this guy and like throws all of her beliefs behind because she's like, oh my gosh, my man. Like, you know what I mean? She's always like stays true to her ideals that like she does everything for the Fremen, and just because like Paul's rising to power doesn't mean she's gonna like throw any of that away. And she shows that I think at the end of the movie, you know, very clearly. So
Yeah, she's the one character in the movie that I would say is written more complex than she is in the book. In the book, she kind of is like just Paul's mate because, or like concubine because they don't actually get married. And that's it. Like, there's not like a ton more depth to Chani. I mean, yeah, she does teach him like the Fremen ways, but like, you know, she's, especially when you get into like Dune Messiah, she's kind of like a damsel in distress in a lot of that book. So it's interesting, like the contrast that Denis was able to adapt here. Obviously, I mean, the book's from 1965, so obviously maybe you write your female characters a little bit differently in 2024 here. But I guess before we get into spoilers here, it feels like we're dancing around them a lot. You want to give like a score for the film, Jason? We want to do like letterbox scores? Or you want 5 out of 5 for this one?
Yeah, I'm putting 5 stars on my letterbox. Yes.
yeah, I think I'd give it 5. Sure.
Cool. Good.
Sounds good.
5.
I think I'd set it at 4.5.
Yeah,
and then
I was gonna say 4.5 probably.
And then maybe watch Dune Messiah and then decide if I want to bump it up to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, because this movie's getting compared a lot to Empire Strikes Back, which is obviously, you know, it's the middle of a trilogy. Middle of trilogies are always, you know, complicated. Mm-hmm. And unlike a lot of other like middle of trilogies, like you don't see like a big defeat for our heroes at this. He's kind of like at the top of the world at the end of this movie. So what do we see in the next one? Do we see him get knocked down a peg, or do we see him like ascend even further? I'm someone who like very rarely gives 5 out of 5 for movies. I think there's always like holes to pick in stuff, especially with like the complexity of filmmaking. But this is absolutely a 5. It's a hell of a movie. Good luck any other movie that comes out this year trying to beat it for Best Picture next year. I know we looked at the slate. I mean, a lot of the movies that we talked about in our most anticipated pod like are getting like bumped out of 2024. Like Jordan Peele's movie's not coming out this year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Like there's like bunch of directors that are just like getting at it. I'm guessing it's like the SAG strikes are just like causing, you know, they're trying to make up for that now, and they're like, fuck it, we'll just like release our movies next year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, really good movie. Definitely recommend seeing it in the biggest, bestest screen you possibly can. It is an experience, and it's a kind of a difficult movie to talk about, like getting right out of it. Feel like it's going to be something that's like simmering in my head for a couple days here. But with that being said, we can get into spoilers. There's 2 main like giant differences from the book that we'd have to discuss a little bit here. The first one is in the book there is like a really significant time jump of like 5 years or so after Paul like links up with the Fremen, and after you know like him and Chani are together. And when you do that flash forward, obviously a bunch of things happen. It better explains like how Paul becomes like an expert Fremen. In the movie, it's like you kind of have to like you know, squint your eyes a little bit, because he goes from like not knowing anything to knowing everything in a very short period of time, at least from the movie's concern. And in that time jump, him and Chani have a child. They have a son who is not in this movie. The son is killed in the siege on Sich Tabor in the book. So that son's just not in the movie at all. He's also not in the David Lynch one. It's just like a plot point that's not been adapted.
Well, yeah, why would you kill a baby if you don't have to, you know?
So real.
And then the other big aspect is Aaliyah is born in that time jump, and she's like a little kid. She's like 5 years old. However, because Jessica drinks the water of life and becomes a reverend mother while she's pregnant, Aaliyah is what's called preborn. So she's basically like a child reverend mother, and she has the knowledge of all of her past ancestors while also being a child, which is very creepy. In this movie, they do something very interesting. I'm curious what you guys thought of the fetus sequences. There's a lot of cutaways to fetuses in this movie.
I hated them. I hated them so much. I could have lived my entire life without seeing that and like been so great. Max.
I thought it worked well.
Max.
Enough. You know, like I thought like the visuals were still good, and like the baby was a big part of it.
The baby was so cringe. Stop. You're so wrong for that.
I think so. Talking about the time jump, I think that's a good thing to bring up. I could tell that there was a time jump, but it was still pretty not explicit, right? You kind of just had to try to figure out. And I think I like that they used the pregnancy a little bit on that. I think they kind of could have done it more, because if we see her going from like, you know, like basically at the end of the book, like she was just pregnant or whatever, to like she, I don't know, like is full, you know, 9 months or whatever, then you could be like, oh, this has been like 9 whole months that have like gone past of like Paul hanging out with the Fremen and all that. And I think that maybe could have helped it a bit more.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I think especially when she drinks the water of life and you see it mingle with the
fetus.
Yeah, the fetus
water.
starts swimming around in it. I'm like, oh, whoa. That was I like that. I honestly thought that was.
But then like the close-ups on like the fetus and it's like speaking. I just I don't know. It's just like it was too weird. Yeah, it was too weird. I liked watching Jessica like talk to the fetus, but like we don't see the fetus. I just like when she's kind of like talking kind of just like out, and she, you know, it's giving she's going a little crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that chaos. She's so mysterious. She's like in her villain era, talking to her unborn child, like so crazy. I love it.
Yeah, I did really like Lady Jessica in this movie.
Me too.
I thought like she had a really clear goal and she was doing everything she could to do it. So that's automatically going to make her character really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Rebecca Ferguson and Timothée Chalamet both do a very good job at showing the transformation that occurs when you take on the water of life. That like they're almost like completely different people before and after. They're like zoned out almost, because, you know, when you drink the water of life, you get that access of prescience. So you get to lock into all of your past ancestors' memories. She says like, you know, hundreds of generations of like pain and torture all at once. And then Paul, when he takes it, he's the Kwisatz Haderach, right? So he gets to look in the places that the female Reverend Mothers are afraid to look into. So he's got like full access to everything, and that's why he talks about being able to like see the future. There's a bit of like I don't know how much of like spoilers I want to get into. He's not actually like seeing the future. A lot of this movie is trying to show you like these fundamentalists and how easy it is to like indoctrinate people into this idea of a Messiah. And by the end of the movie, like it almost makes you believe it as the viewer. You're like, oh my God, this guy is the Jesus.
Yeah.
But he's not. Dune is a story about, it's a cautionary tale about messianic figures. And this movie ends with Paul as a messianic figure, which is hilarious. And I wonder how much like movie-going audiences will like get that, like, he's not like the hero of this story. That's not what you should be taking from this.
Yeah, I think they could have done a little bit more to like help explain why, because Paul in like the first half of the movie was like, I'm not going to be this Messiah. I don't want to do that. That's not my thing. I'm just trying to chill. And he was like, babe, don't worry. I'm not going to be this Messiah. I don't even want to be the Messiah, babe. Don't even worry about it. And then like he drinks the sip and then he's like, oh, I'm the Messiah. You know, because there was that part where he was like saying that and he's like, oh, you guys go to the south. Don't worry about me. I'm going to hang back. And he was like so pushed against it. Part of me was like, okay, like we know he's going to do it, right? Yeah. We know he's going to do it. So I think if they took the time to be like, this is why he had such a dramatic reversal of like, I am not going to be the Messiah. And then choosing like, oh, no, wait, I decided to be the Messiah. It was a big thing and it was a little jarring. And I think they maybe could have done a little bit more on that.
Yeah. Timothée Chalamet tucking and rolling into his white savior complex so hard. He was like, am I gonna liberate all these people of color?
Yeah, like I haven't seen any articles on it yet.
White guy.
But there's definitely gonna be some like people that watch this movie and go, oh my God, this is a white savior movie. They're just doing the thing. And that's not what this is. It's actually literally the opposite. But the movie, I don't know, like he's almost Denis almost like trusting the viewer to be like understanding enough to like get what he's trying to tell here. It's one of those parts where he's not explicitly telling you what is exactly happening here, what you should think of it. I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
I think that a lot of audiences are going to walk away from this thinking that Paul is just the hero of the story.
Yeah.
And I think Denis anticipates that and will kind of do like a rug pull in the third movie.
Yeah, Dune Messiah is a rug pull. That's exactly what it is.
Like this movie, spoilers.
We're in spoilers. You're good.
Yeah. It ends with Paul leading the Fremen into a holy war against the rest of the galaxy. And it's like he's seen visions of like destruction and deaths of billions of people. So like things are looking good for him right now. They're gonna go bad and poorly, and he's gonna have a bad time. So I think that, yeah, coming out of this movie, like when Paul was giving his speech after he drank the water and he was like telling people like, I know your grandmother got this scar on her face from this, blah, 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 and was getting everyone to cheer. I was buying into that really hard. I think if I was in that room and Timothée Chalamet was yelling at me like that, I would join his cult.
Yeah.
Like he was doing a really good job. But yeah, I also understand that he is like not really a messiah character and that we're supposed to kind of learn from this movie. But at the same time, if I was there, I wouldn't learn anything. And my favorite part of the movie is when Timothée Chalamet says, I'm not the Messiah. And then that one guy, Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem is kind of like the comic relief in this movie, which is great.
Weird.
He's the ultimate hype man. He's like, look, the Messiah is too humble to even say that he's the Messiah. That's how we know he's the Messiah.
I know.
So good.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things, like, I feel like you would need to, like, get this on, like, Lord of the Rings level, is that you need that, like, camaraderie and, like, a little bit of comedy between the characters to, like, not have it be, like, all serious all the time, despite, like, how serious, obviously, like, the situation is that they're all in. The other major thing we'll have to talk about that's a big diversion from the book is Chani's, like, her refusal to be, you know, indoctrinated into all of this. She sees right through it. She sees right through the fundamentalism and like what the Bene Gesserit are trying to do. And she's calling bullshit. And she's like literally the only one calling bullshit on this. Everybody else is locked in. It's not how it is in the book. And I think it's a really, really cool change for him to make because it's going to invite so much conflict in the next movie.
I do agree. I liked that was her stance. But I also think that like the thing that determines character is like the way that they act, right? And at the end of the day, she does play her part in the prophecy, and then she does fight for Paul against the people that he wanted her to fight against. So like she certainly was vocal, but at the same time, she still like played her part exactly how they wanted her to.
Yeah, it's also interesting because, you know, her whole thing is she's like, I fight for the Fremen, but the Fremen are fighting for Paul. So at the end of the movie, she walks away. So then it's kind of like the question is like, well, who is she fighting for now? Or is she just truly walking away from her people because they're following him? I don't know. I'll be curious to see like what her arc is moving forward because what is she now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because at the end of the first Dune book, like she becomes Paul's concubine. Essentially, he marries Princess Irulan. He functionally becomes the emperor, and that's the end of it. And then in the next book, like Chani's pregnant again. She has twins, Leto and Ganima, and Children of Dune, which is the third book in the series. That's about their children. And it sounds like they're going to completely go away from that whole storyline. So that's something where like people that know the book have no idea what they're going to do with Chani at this point, which is really interesting to look at. Like the one thing that Denis was like, no, we're actually going to divert a little bit from what Herbert was trying to go for with that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do next. That character seems kind of boring in the books, and she was really boring in the Lynch movie.
Yeah, Sean Young, poor Sean Young. She had like nothing to do.
Yeah, this was like a big step up. And like, she literally just kind of like gets in her car and drives off into the sunset. Getting in your car is calling a Shai Hulud in this universe.
Right.
I was thinking that when they had all like the five worms, like when everyone was going south, I was just imagining be like, babe, the Uber's here. The Shy Halud is here. We gotta go. Come on.
They never explained how you got like a group of people on a worm. I understand like one person can get on the worm just by like kind of like going like over the ridge, but like how do you get a group of people like in an organized manner on top of a worm that's moving?
I was thinking that too. I was like, wait, how'd they all get up there? Hang on.
Ask them politely to stop.
That's some movie magic right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if someone has to pee on the way? Can you pull over?
Pull over the worm, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what are some other divergences? Oh, one of the divergences that I'm aware of, even though I'm not at this part in the book yet, is that in the books, it's Aaliyah that kills the Baron. So Aaliyah is that fetus, but in the book, she's a 5-year-old.
Queen.
Dylan, can you explain the book kill a little bit?
So Aaliyah, yeah, like you said, Aaliyah kills the Baron. She kills him with a gom jabbar, which is the poison tip needle that the Bene Gesserit have. And she says, "Now, grandfather, you'll know my gom jabbar." And then as the series goes along, Aaliyah, because she's preborn, she basically goes insane over the course of like 2 books. As she gets older, and she's like haunted by the voice of the Baron, like he's like talking to her. And that connection between those 2 characters is like, important. And the fact that she did kill him, I think like, I don't know, makes the connection stronger or something like that. They do the reveal, which I told you about this before, that like Lady Jessica is Baron Harkonnen's daughter. I wasn't sure they were going to bring it up in this movie. They get to it pretty late in the game, but like the idea that like all these people are related, all these royal families, the Bene Gesserit are just like, breeding down bloodlines till they can get like, the specimens that they're looking for. I mean, that's like literally all Lady Fenring does in this movie is she like hooks up with Feyd-Rautha and she gets pregnant with his child. So she's like, okay, we've preserved the bloodline, which is good because all those fucking Harkonnens die in this movie. But the Bene Gesserit, they're pulling the strings behind the scenes. One of my favorite lines is at the end when Rebecca Ferguson says to the Reverend Mother, she's like, "Oh, you chose the wrong side," and she's like, "Well, there are no sides in this. We're the Bene Gesserit. We don't do sides. We're playing all angles."
Yeah, so like every time they make another baby, it's like hedging a bet, basically.
Yeah, and that's like their main issue with Paul is that like they just couldn't control him at the end of the day. Like they bred this like perfect specimen, and then he got out of control. It's another like cautionary tale on their part. I was seeing some memes that were like memeing the Bene Gesserit a little bit, or like, yeah, you like generations of bloodlines that you're like carefully crafting this like perfect being, and then he just tells you like fuck off, basically. Like, oh, you messed up there, I guess.
That was such a bad reveal. Yeah, that scene with Paul and Lady Jessica where he was like, "We're related to the bad guys," and she's like, "I know, just found out too." And that's the entire scene. I'm like, that's such hot tea.
Yeah.
And they just decided to have Timothy say that, be like, "Hey, guess we're related to the bad guys."
I'm pretty sure Jessica knows in the book too. It's not like something that was kept from her. She's aware of it.
I just read the chapter. I don't think she knows, or the Duke isn't sure if she knows, but the Duke knows.
Leto Atreides?
Yeah, Leto knows, and Thufir knows.
So the reader knows like really early in the book that like all these people are connected.
Mm-hmm. So in the book, they find out that there's a traitor among them, and Thufir's like, "Well, could it be?"
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
could it be this lady that's a Harkonnen?
Yeah, that's a whole big part of the book is that before like Yue is revealed as the traitor, they think Lady Jessica is the traitor. Mm-hmm. Which they don't talk about at all in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Thufir Hawat, where was he?
Where was he?
Yeah, he's not in this movie, unfortunately. I think he shot a couple scenes and the scenes were cut. So maybe if there's like a director's cut of this film or an extended edition on the Blu-ray, we'll see those scenes again.
Denis Villeneuve said he's not releasing an extended cut or the deleted scenes. He said, "My movie is the way it is."
Yeah, that's some coward shit. Peter Jackson would never.
We actually just said, we were like, kind of want to see the extended cut.
We're extended cut people.
Yeah.
We
really?
only watch Lord of the Rings extended edition. Like,
Wow.
at least that's me personally.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I like this thing. Yes, give me more of this thing that I like. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
makes sense.
Yeah. I was even thinking like, if they were able to put like all those sort of like probably more explanatory scenes of, I think some of the stuff like, why did the Emperor go to Arrakis? Like they went by it so quickly. Like Paul sent out a message and then like next scene, like the Emperor was coming. They didn't even like read out what the message was.
Yeah, I'm also confused about that.
And I was kind of just like, what? Like, yeah, it seems pretty dangerous to go to this like really inhospitable planet where there's a ton of your enemies.
Yeah, we're gonna land right in the middle of the sand.
Yeah, no, and not only that, but they like let Paul walk in, and it's just a bunch of guys with swords being like, "Don't come any closer. We'll stab you. We'll do it." And it's like, why did you guys even let him in for the first place? I don't know. It's just kind of. I mean, I guess obviously they probably want him alive for some reason, or do they want to kill him? Like, just not clear.
I think they knew they weren't going to win that fight because right behind Paul was like a whole army of.
Okay, yeah, no fair.
Yeah, but I guess I just don't really know why the Emperor came to Arrakis.
I don't know either.
I think the end of this movie kind of just shows like the plot that the Harkonnens and the Emperor like strung together. As soon as like Paul becomes this like legend with the Fremen, it just fucks up the whole plan. Like the plan would have worked fine if Paul had just died out in the desert, him and Jessica. They would have been good to go. But because of this, like now they're in a pickle. And now the Harkonnens are making, there's a scene where like the Baron talks about like they're going to make a power play for Fade to become the Emperor. That's going to be their plan. So like the Emperor is like toast regardless. He's kind of like Duke Leto in the first movie. And maybe the Emperor knew that. He was like, shit, like I ain't winning this fight. So, I'll go out on my terms here. I will say the scene where they blow up the shield wall with the Family Atomics, which is straight out of the board game. We're big Dune board game fans. Family Atomics, big part of that board game. I thought it was hilarious when they mentioned it. They blow up the shield wall, and then the fucking worms coming out of the wall of sand is one of the coolest fucking shots I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Yeah, it was really sick.
And like the music swelling when the worms come through, and the Sardaukar they do a 180 and start running the other way. Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that was dope. I will say that entire fight sequence went a little quicker than I anticipated.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, like compared to like the Lord of the Rings battles and stuff, like this one went by fast.
That was probably an area where they're like, we can shave some budget by like, we don't need extended fight sequences with like a million extras out in the sand.
Yeah.
I was just like even a little surprised when Paul and his posse come into the temple or whatever, because I was like, oh, is the battle over?
Yeah. And it was.
Yeah.
So fast. And then Bautista got killed pretty immediately.
And that was so fast too.
So fast.
I did love him. I really liked his character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good.
He's I feel like he always kind of plays like a silly, quirky little guy in all of his movies. And even if he is the villain, he's kind of like the silly, quirky little villain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like even though we're like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy, he's still kind of silly, goofy. He's just a little guy.
You think so?
I kind of think he's got a little. I kind of think Bautista has little guy energy.
I think so too. The way he talks in interviews, he's like, I just wish someone would put me in a rom-com, but maybe I'm not handsome enough to be in a rom-com.
He's just a little guy. Even when he's being evil.
He's really in the one scene he's in Blade Runner. Where it's like,
right.
Can we get this man a smaller pair of glasses?
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
He said that Denis Villeneuve is the first director to tell him that he had good acting instincts and he should follow them. Aww. And he was like, no director's ever talked to me like that before.
Oh.
Yeah, because you'd think that, especially with like how similar wrestling and movies are, that like you'd see a good number of wrestlers like transition into being actors pretty seamlessly. But like even the more notable ones, like it's not like The Rock and John Cena are in like movies of this caliber
Definitely
and quality.
Not.
And like Bautista's like he's fitting in with the rest of the cast here just fine. I think what's cool about Rabin is that he's another character in the book that like he's kind of just a henchman. He's like a figurehead. He doesn't really do much. But in this movie, he kind of serves as like he's a bad guy, and like Fade is like so much worse than him. Is that it makes Fade look so like crazy bad. Like in the scene where he makes him like, kiss his shoe. It's really great. Like I really enjoyed the scenes where they built out the Harkonnen side of things.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's like, it felt like the first like hour of the movie is just out in the desert. We saw nothing but sand, and it was feeling a little monotonous. I was like, all right, they got to break this up. And I think they do a much better job in like the back half of the movie with the pacing there.
Yeah, the visuals on that planet were really cool too. Like you said, it's
good.
Black and white, sort of monochrome. But also, I really liked they had like fireworks that looked like ink splatters.
Yeah.
I thought that was like one of the coolest, like just sci-fi touches I've seen in a movie.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie is that like every scene, even if it's just like two people walking down a hallway, like there's always like something crazy going on with the lighting or the camera work or it's so dynamic. Nothing in this movie is flat. There's no like shot reverse shot going on. They're like, how fucking creative can we be with how we're shooting this movie? And it helps, make it seem not just a bunch of scenes in a desert over and over again, even though that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also feel like the design like plays really well into like the world building of like this idea that the Harkonnen, that feels weird. Okay, but they're like this stark black and white, mostly white, like order is everything, like super, colonizer energy. And then there's like the Fremen who have like the earth tones and are like people of the earth and are like community based, like the native vibes. And so then like seeing them together and just seeing like the stark contrast and just this also like when the Harkonnen get on, get to the planet, they're just so like alien in that space. Like they truly don't look like they belong. And so it's like good colonist energy of like, these people do not fucking belong here. Yeah. And getting to see the Fremen absolutely rock their shit is so satisfying for us as viewers, I think, because we're like,
yeah, that's such a good point of the how the design like really plays into it, because there are a lot of factions that you have to keep track of, but the design is so distinct. Like the two of the like the Fremen and the Harkonnen, and then also the Bene Gesserit having such a distinct design too, of like them being very like ornate, like and adorned, and like cut off with like veils and things.
Very like conservative, like the like Florence Pugh's look where like just her face was showing.
Yeah, she's in like chainmail.
Yeah, but like so interesting, this idea that they almost have like this like arm. It almost looks like armor because it's like silver and like there's like the chainmail and the heavy beading, and like it seems almost like it's armor, but it's all soft and it's not actually. Right. I think that's interesting, is this idea that they, as the emperor, like they're obviously in positions of power and they are very protected, but they're not actually, right? They're still like people. And like, obviously, our boy Paul is like, I'm going to kill you, Mr. Emperor.
Yeah. What did you guys think of Christopher Walken as the Emperor, the Paddish Emperor Shaddam IV?
God, I just wanted to hear his accent so badly. I wanted to hear the Christopher Walken voice so bad.
Yeah, the first 2 times I saw him, I laughed because it's Christopher Walken.
I know, it's like so silly.
But I bought into it by the 3rd time I saw him.
Yeah. Similar. I was like the first second, I was like, double take.
Come on, Max. I know you want to do the impression.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard this.
Paul.
Keep going.
No, is Christopher Walken in the room right now? Oh my god.
But yeah, I also liked him. I thought good performance. Like not a ton to do, but still, I thought it was good presence.
Yeah, like hell of a choice to cast Christopher Walken as the Emperor and then make him like really understated. Like he doesn't have a lot of lines. He doesn't talk a lot until the very end when it's like clear like he's pissed off, and when like he just like destroys the floating thing on the Baron. So the Baron's he's just fucking laying there like a slug on the stairs. Like when Paul and the Fremen come in, like everybody runs away except for the Baron because he's so fat he can't move. He's just like stuck in place. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that the Baron was like crawling towards the throne because he knew it was like his last act.
Yeah, just wanted to get up there,
and he just wanted to sit on it.
That's good. It's good exercise. If you can't get your steps in, get your crawls in.
Yeah, and he didn't get that close.
No, he didn't get that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think this series goes from here? Denis has said there's going to be one more movie that he's working on. Dune Messiah is a book that does not have a lot of action in it. There's like one sequence out in the desert, and that's it. The book doesn't really have much else. But like, where do you think this series is going from here exactly?
Having not read the next book, but vaguely knowing, like, I know things are going to go wrong for Paul. I thought he was going to have twin children, but maybe that won't happen now.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's going to be the most interesting thing is like, do him and Chani get back together, or are they going to completely go off script from the books? And like, if those twins aren't born, like, then like, I don't know. Maybe they just do the thing where like the series ends after that third book, because the whole idea of the Holy War is that he's basically doing like a Doctor Strange Infinity War thing where he says like, I've seen all of the futures, and there's one future where like humanity doesn't get exterminated, and that's the future where we have to do this unfortunately we have to do this holy war where billions of people get killed, and that's why Paul is going on this path. But maybe this is one of those like futures where humanity gets exterminated, and that's what we see in the third movie. I have no idea what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they're continuing down the cautionary tale. Like, he's like, I have access to all these bombs. You know what I mean? And now that he's like kind of power hungry and he's like riding that high of like, I just defeated the Emperor and the, bald alien guys, like, what's next? I don't know. I think that Chani will be our hero next. I think she's going to come back and she's going to lead the Fremen once they realize that Paul is not great. Me personally. I also feel like we're going to like see this war unfold, obviously. But I don't, how it's going to come out, I don't know. Yeah,
Dune Messiah does a bit of planet hopping, which is nice. It's not entirely on Dune.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, where they've planet hopped, for both of these first two movies, but it feels like if you're going to run like an interstellar war, then like probably a lot of it would not take place on Dune. And I'm just wondering, like, design wise, like the movie's called Dune. Like it would feel a little odd if you went and saw the third Dune movie and most of it wasn't even in a desert. You know what I mean?
I'm sure the climax of the film will be on Arrakis still, but there will definitely be sequences like on other planets, because like the main plot of Dune Messiah is that, and this isn't a huge spoiler, it's like chapter 1 of the book, is that there's like a group that is like working together to try to dethrone Paul. They're trying to take him down, and it's like it's Princess Ireland, it's some members of the other royal houses. There's a guild navigator, which we have not seen a guild navigator yet in either of these movies. But they're like super deformed. Watch the David Lynch one for anybody that wants to see what a guild navigator looks like. His name's Edric. He's a nice guy. So they have a guild navigator, and they also have the Taelexu, which we have not seen anything about the Taelexu and the Golas. If we get a third movie, I'm assuming we're going to start seeing some Golas. We're going to see some Jason Momoa clones in the next movie.
Oh, baby.
Nice.
We're going to see a lot of Jason Momoas running around there.
Let's go.
So it's gonna get wild. Next movie's gonna get a little wild. Like, if you thought there's like weird shit in this movie, there's like way weirder shit in the Dune universe. I mean, we haven't even gotten like everybody that is a fan of the Dune books would love to see God Emperor on screen. Do you guys know anything about God Emperor Dune?
Is that from Warhammer 40,000?
God Emperor Dune is the fourth book in the franchise, and it tells the story about Leto II, who has merged with the sandworm and become the God Emperor, and he's like a giant worm person.
Ew.
And
sorry, but
this series gets so fucking weird.
And then they build a mecha God Emperor, and they fight each other.
Yeah, a kaiju movie in Dune.
Wait, so did you say the next movie is the last?
Denis has said that the next film is going to be the last one he does. So maybe they do more Dune movies. I would assume that like they're not going to try anything else if Denis is not on board. But it's possible he like kind of like squishes the next group of books together, because like I said, there's not a lot of action in the other ones. There's a lot of like people like walking and talking down hallways and like Bene Gesserit like stuff. So it's possible like general movie-going audiences want to be interested in this stuff. I think Denis would know that. So I'm curious to see like which parts of the other books that he picks out to like make this movie with.
Yeah. I think walking into this conversation, I was still kind of thinking that like, oh yeah, Paul's the hero, right? This is going to be the story of how he like, he's the Luke Skywalker. He gets the victory in the end. But I think after talking about it, I think it does kind of seem likely that like in this next movie, he's going to probably make a lot of bad decisions, be really power hungry, going to have a lot of people die. And then it feels thematic that something like the Bene Gesserit still kind of come out well, because that's kind of like their whole thing, that like, they don't play sides. And then I have to imagine that it would be like, it would be unsatisfying if we didn't have some sort of resolution on Arrakis too, which probably is going to play into Chani's storyline too.
Yeah. I think it's canon in the books that the Atreides bloodline is cursed, and terrible things befall all the male members of the line because they're descended from that Greek house. What's it called, Max?
It's like Atreides. It's really similar.
And they're from which Greek myth?
The king Atreides is mentioned in the Odyssey.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, they talk about it in the book that you can trace the Atreides lineage all the way back to ancient Greece on Earth, which they don't talk about Earth in the movies, but like Earth did exist in this universe, just nobody lives there anymore. And I think they don't even know where Earth is anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like lost in the galaxy. My big hot take, bold prediction is that the third movie is going to end with a knife fight between Paul and Chani's going to kill Paul.
Oh, nice.
That'd be awesome.
That is
to see that.
As she should.
That is not in the book. That is not remotely in the book. But the way they're telling the story, it feels like what they're setting up here a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting. The first and the second movies both ended in a knife fight.
Yeah, they love knife fights. Really cool knife fight in this one at the end.
Yeah.
It was a good reveal. We all thought. Mm-hmm. We all thought. But
yeah.
Nope.
So anyway, Jason, any final thoughts on Dune Part 2? Are you going to see it again in theaters, you think?
Yeah. I mean, I went to the bathroom, so I like to see movies again and see what I missed. I think I picked a good time to go to the bathroom. I forget what was happening, but it was a lot of talking. Try and go when I went. But yeah, this was a great movie. I'm really excited for the next one. I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to snag a Dune popcorn bucket. If any of our listeners has an extra, please send it.
Send it our way.
We'll shout you out on the podcast.
We'll give you our P.O. box.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a really exciting movie. The best I've seen in like a long time. The scope of it was incredible. And yeah, I'm going to see it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you guys?
My favorite part was when he was riding the worm, and then everyone goes, "He's doing it! He's doing it!"
Hey guys, he's riding the worm.
Yeah, I liked when they're like, "Remember what this planet used to be called? Dune." And Max and I were like, "Dude, they said it! They said it!" That was the best part.
Yeah, that was good.
Even though the Baron calls it Dune in the first movie.
Okay, whatever.
Which is interesting. The only question I have is why did the sandworms? Why do their like scales point the direction they do? You feel like it should be reversed, right? It should the opening. So
they're
should
more
be,
aerodynamic. Yeah, aerodynamic.
Yeah, they should. They should open like in the back. So like the way that they like hook them. It shouldn't be like feasible because they'd be like hooking them backwards. I guess like the movie doesn't happen if that's the case.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. We'd have to ask like a biologist.
Yeah, they don't
ask a worm.
They don't explain it in the movie, but the reason why like they're able to ride the worms is because when they hook it, they show like the little like nostrils that they have like under the scales, and they don't want to get like sand in their nostrils, so they stay above the ground, and that's how they're able to ride them.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Cool.
Doesn't explain how you get a group of people up there. I don't know. Well, maybe they'll be on the director's commentary. Anyway, that's going to be it for our quick Dune Part 2 discussion. Appreciate you guys coming on the pod. Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks as always.
You guys have anything to plug?
Anything to plug?
You have an improv show tomorrow.
Oh my God. Yeah. Improv show tomorrow. Comedy Sports, 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Max?
Yeah. We do local comedy around.
Max and I have a comedy duo called The Worms, which is like really apropos.
Burying the lead here.
I know. Wait, sorry. We should have led with that. What an idiot. Yeah. So find us.
It's great. I've seen it. It's cute and funny.
It is cute and funny.
Yeah, check it out.
We'll drop some links in the description of this podcast so you guys can check it out.
Do you have links?
We can make some.
Whip some up.
Shut up, Jason.
It's just gonna be a link to like worms on a Google search, Google image search.
Wikipedia worm.
The Alaskan bullworm.
Anyway, that's gonna be it for this episode of the Over Under Movies podcast. Thanks again everyone for listening, or if you're on YouTube for watching us, and we will catch you guys next time. See you at the movies.